Pretty good. So the not is obvious, non, but duality, it's hopefully an understanding will form around the concepts of duality. But you can boil it down to the sense of dualism right where we're sitting. Yeah, because sometimes the thinking and then the thought about would be the objectness. Yeah, the dilemma with this whole situation is the object is presented to be the subject. See, so therefore, when subjectivity is coming through us, as you know, sort of like wind coming through a flute, let's say, subjectivity is coming through us, the mental state arises and then infers that the subjectivity implies the objectivity. So the object now is cast as the seer, and then you lose the sense of the livingness of seeing. Yeah, like when you were a kid, there was seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, and then no sense of self had really developed that strongly yet. Yeah, so the seeing would go on unabated, and there would be like, you know, joy and whatever. Things would move through quickly, and you would see that people who seem to have left that condition really love looking at babies because there's no one home really. And that's the true home, really. So this seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, just take the five senses. And the five senses, by recognizing that, it can just expand out. Yeah. So the five senses are seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. And in Buddhism, they present the thought, the head seeing the thoughts, or the seeing of thoughts as another sense, yeah, or like an intuitive feeling, whatever. So there's six senses in the Buddhist scheme of it, but let's say five senses. Okay, so the seeing is happening, yeah, now. And yet we don't recognize there's something else happening after the seeing that claims the seeing and infers this noun called the seer. And suddenly, if the seeing and then the noun that was called the seer was in alignment, it would be cool. But what happens is when the noun is supposed, it's presupposed. So suddenly the noun that comes after the verb, so the seeing, yeah, hatches this idea that there's a seer, but now in our narrative we're living by, most of us, the seer is before the seeing. So now there's the object is doing the subjectivity, yes? So basically that, looking at it on that fundamental level, you don't have to get into all the tweaks later because it makes complete sense why everything is really based on a huge misunderstanding because it starts right there. The conception of every moment in time is a seeing, which is, let's say, the sense of being conscious, yeah, not saying there's anyone conscious, but the sense of being conscious, that seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching is the ways we're conscious, yeah. The mental state isn't noticed usually, and the mental state arises and says, yeah, that's happening, but what it's really implying is there's something that's happening even before that, which is you. And the you is pictured not as it's presented as a subject, but it's pictured as an object. That's the basis of non-duality. Yeah, there's a negation of that dualism where there's no clarity between subject-object. It's sort of like it's all mixed up. So the language talks a lot about us as a first person pronoun or something, but we're pictured as an object. Yeah. So this confusion just begets more confusion as you go away. And of course, we'd like everything to become clear, but we're unclear here. So there's a lot of people that are super clear about certain topics, but they're totally unclear about this bondage of self. They don't see, they actually believe there's something real, yeah? And then that clarity projects from there, but there's no clarity about what's before that, yeah? So the idea of non-duality is presenting a new understanding to sort of put into contrast with the misunderstandings we called our old understanding. Because the premise of non-duality is being ourselves reality. We are what we're looking for. Yeah, now that's very difficult to believe if you believe you're that which is looking, and you're that which is being looked at, and you're that which is looking for. Yeah, because it goes completely against this premise, because this premise needs a lot of shit. Yeah, things aren't working well, blah, blah, blah. But in fact, we're not talking about the action figure realm. We're talking about the contextual realm, that we are not of subject object. We are, you could say we are subjectivity, but we're not of this subject object. So that's the dualism that non-duality negates. It's just basically putting out a new assumption that, hey, you are what you're looking for. Yeah, the seeker is the sort, being ourselves reality, the idea on having never left, so there's no need to go anywhere. So its whole premise is that's that and that's that, really. Now, what happens is when people, this idea of being a person hears it, the mental state claims this message, just like it claims everything else, and then it tries to turn it to its own advantage. And it will start maybe judging others and start saying, you know, yourself is bothering my non-self. In other words, they think they're the only person that's in non-self, which is complete dualism, you know, whatever. But you know what I mean? So hopefully, knowing that that's going to happen, you outgrow that, let's say, immaturity, and then you stick with the message, and then the message starts peeling a lot of shit off that isn't there. Yeah, it just peels it off, and you really find the greatest gift is nothing. Yeah, most people move away from nothing quickly because they want something, but if you've been disillusioned enough about the illusionary condition, then maybe you'll sit with it and you'll just wait, and then things start happening out of nothing. And now suddenly you have an understanding that brings into stark contrast the misunderstandings that you're based on. Yeah. And really, when light's brought to both topics, you see this is of light and this is a reflection or a distortion of light. Yes. So I'm going to just lean towards the light. There's no volition involved. There's just the leaning, you know. And so now you start seeing what you're not, instead of looking for what you're not, for what you are, from what you're not. You see what you're not, looking for what you are from what you're not. And actually, it's us anyway. It is what's looking. Yeah. So the whole message of non-duality, you don't hear like non-Buddhism, non-Kabbalahism, non-Jainism. Yeah, you just hear Jainism, Buddhism, because this is a different, this is not a path, it's a negation. That's the whole point. It's negating something or a lot of something. Yeah. And it's negating from something, from the brilliant nothing, that we are what we're looking for right now, with no requirements necessary to be it, other than the ones your head makes up. Yeah. So basically, if Ramana Maharshi, a great master, says the greatest mystery is reality wanting to attain reality, being ourselves reality. Yeah. So that's the assumption of non-duality. We are reality. No matter how we're appearing in our head mental scape, or what we think we've done or are going to do, none of that, none of the conditions that can occur here are going to block out that inherent condition. Yeah, it's sort of like the sky never gets scarred by every 4th of July explosions, does it? The sky doesn't have a cloud limitation, but how many clouds come, because it knows the sky clouds are going to go. That's their nature. Yeah. But the sky is never touched or affected by what's appearing in it. That's what we're like. Yeah. On a level that we cannot understand. It's just more of an intimation. You hear the message of non-duality, And then it's like an unspoken yes, or like an echo from knowledge before acquiring knowledge. It's just an intimation. You just know it's true, yeah, in your bones. And so you come to an end of searching because you've realized you've been using what you're looking for to look for it. Yeah, so it sort of pulls the plug out of a lot of stuff. Yeah, if you get it, it just pulls the plug out of it. And your whole life while driving is completely different than when it stops. You see something that you don't see while you're busily trying to drive to the goal. When that driving to wherever you think you're going or want to go stops, you see a lot more. Yes, more is revealed, basically. It's not like there's more to reveal, more is revealed. Everything is always there at all times, but now it becomes revealed. And like in Zen, they say, you know, blue is blue and red is red. Things become clear, yeah? Because of why? Because there's been a loss of interest in living by and reinforcing the misunderstandings, yeah? It's clear that there is subjectivity, but the object isn't the cause or the source of it. That's the non-duality. Yeah, so now when subjectivity is coming through, you're not in the second aspect of it after the claiming and taking you're the one that's doing all this shit. You're the one that's seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. You realize basically, I come to basically way after the fact of what's happened. The mental state just shows up way later, but it tells a story that it's before. That's what it does over and over again. Yeah, over and over and over again. So first you hear the message. I found when I went to non-duality, it was quite novel because most messages have taken into consideration and have sort of fit themselves around this assumption that we're a living thing, yeah? And then basically you may think you're on a path of transcendence, but it's just making this better so you have a nicer life, which is fine, yeah? But non-duality doesn't play that game. It just presents some possibilities. It lets you try them on. It's not forcing a spiritual shoe on your foot. It's saying, hey, you're fucking hopefully you're tired enough trying all these spiritual shoes. Hey, sit down and let me pick one and put the shoe on and see if it fits. Yeah, so some of the great ones that I got very complete. I mean, it's like one meal has nourished me for 30 years, you know, and one of them was whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving. It's a beautiful statement. Yeah, because right now, obviously, I'm perceiving the wall, you guys, and then there's a subtle perception of a space, yeah, because there's something here that's allowing all this other shit to appear. Yeah, and you get this feeling, and then you also get this feeling that there's a slight movement going on, let's call it time. So you're not in a still frame, there's always a movement. So your seeing right now is really a form of looking. Your seeing has been doctored up by time and space. So you're looking in a certain way that's blind to the seeing. Yeah. Yeah. So you start noticing this stuff and then you put on another pair of shoes. Hey, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You can't use mind to seek mind. You can't use light to seek light. You can do it for eons and nothing's going to happen. Why? Why is that? Because you're the Buddha, you're the mind, you're the light. That's the only reason why it won't produce any effects for eons. If it was Paul, Jim, and Mary, you'd probably squeeze out some effects over time. Hopefully, it's like the system throws you a bone occasionally. But here he's saying emphatically, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha, and with the understatement is because you are the Buddha. That's the whole message of non-duality. It doesn't hang you on a limb. Oh, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. It sounds like another fucking the 11th commandment or something. But no, it puts this information out with the assumption, which is you're the Buddha. your mind, your light. That's why you can't use light to seek light, because you are light. Yeah, that's the whole point. And then it's not saying you will be if you go through a couple of these rotations and undo or do more or whatever. It doesn't say you once were and you really screwed up. So you have this mortal sin dogging at your heels all day. The original sin, there's no original sin. Just all freaking contraptions to keep us enslaved in a certain way, yeah? A lot of people want to become middlemen between you and what you are, because there's a business opportunity there, truly. There's a huge business opportunity because people suffer the irritability, restlessness, and the discontent. You feel it as if it's real completely because of what's taking it to be so. It seems really to be so. We are the dreaming. We are not a fucking 2-bit production. We are a kaleidoscopic event. We can make shit out of nothing. You can think about something that's not happening and override what's happening right now. And it seems like there was no effort to get to that point. It just seems your head can do it. Like, oh, you know, today's Saturday, yeah, fuck Saturday. Next week, I think I'm gonna be destitute. You know what I mean? And now that I know my knee's gonna blow out, I know it. You know, you have so much faith, you don't, but the head has faith in its own shenanigans. And you can't get out of a system as the system. If you use the raft from that raft maker, you're gonna be on a long, long journey looking for the other shore. And a lot of pieces of the raft will break and you'll have to get pieces all along, like an Audi or something. They make their money from parts, really. I remember I was younger, there was a BMW commercial on TV. Had this European suave speaking male guy, and he's going on and he goes to this one sentence, and the new BMW is virtually self-tuning, but it isn't self-tuning. You're gonna cost $2,000 to tune it up, but it's going virtually self-tuning. Yes, you see? So this head manufactures, yeah, a story. And then there's a huge investment in that story. So you become blind. By being enthralled in the story, you get blind. Yeah, that's what happens. You're not blind, but it appears to you as if you are. Because the interest and attention, in Buddhism, they sort of imply it with the statement cherishing of self, yeah? So there's a cherishing of this little story that's being made up to the expense of everything else. Like way, way heavily absorbed, yeah? And then you run into all the descriptions like Tibetan Buddhism talking about, like the hungry ghost, which is a creature with a very big stomach, has a huge appetite, but a very small mouth. It can never get enough. And if you get enough, it's never enough. And addictions go on and addictions go on and addictions go on. And some of the scariest addictions aren't the flamboyant ones. It's this addiction to self, this addiction to thoughts, yeah. At least if you go crazy with drugs and other shit, some people are gonna notice and they may put the kibosh on you and maybe a possibility, but most people, this is what we call the norm, but it's just a crazy fucking runaway mind train, yeah. So how are we gonna get out of what we're not in? How are you gonna get out of it? If the manufactured reaction to the manufactured condition is to try to escape, which is part and parcel of the condition. It's the biggest in of the condition wanting to get out of it. So we are constantly in the pursuit of trying to get out of something we're not in. And when it fails, it just blames itself. It turns on itself and self just goes off on self. Yeah. It has no intention of leaving. That's why it wants you to try to leave. Because when you try to leave, it reinforces you're somewhere that you're not, yeah. When you try to leave, it reinforces that you're somewhere that you're not, yeah. And the point is, there's nothing wrong with leaving. It's when there's the sense of being the one that's leaving, is that when that's attached, then there's a whole other agenda going on, which is the bondage of self. You're bonded to this idea, this mistake of subject is the core, is an attribute of the object. I mean, you can't be more, you can't have, that is definitely not the horse in front of the cart. It's just, the cart now is, you look at life from the cart in front of the horse. Yeah. You're taking yourself to be the seeing when you have nothing to do with the seeing. You're taking yourself to be the doer, yet you're compelled to do tons of shit and you never see where that compulsion comes from. Yeah, I've been under extreme addiction. You could torture me with water torture. I would never fucking admit that I did all that stuff because that's not my experience of it. Something took me over and used me and brought me to a lot of places and compelled actions that I would never come up with ever in my life. And basically, I was left holding the bag because I was in Rome and everyone thought I was a Roman doing what Romans do. So there isn't a precedent in the court systems of non-self. You're not going to get out of fucking murder. Oh, there's no one I killed and there's no one I killed. You're going to jail. There's no, this isn't a formatted understanding, non-duality. Non-duality hopefully is breaking on the shores of a foreign fucking place. Once it gets adapted and taken and hybrided and synthesized, it won't be non-duality. It'll be some like an appendage on Buddhism or something. Yeah, but it's just a fact. Yeah, being ourselves reality. Do you have a feeling that that possibly could be true or not? I do, yeah. Because it's not saying, you know, we can do ourselves into becoming reality. It makes an immediate statement of an everlasting condition, being ourselves reality. See, it's not, oh, you're doing, keep it up, you're doing yourself reality. Keep it, no, being ourselves reality. So our inherent state is that. That's really the invitation of non-duality. Yeah. And hopefully, because a lot of other understandings truly fit around the misunderstanding. Yeah, it basically complements the misunderstanding instead of putting into stark contrast. It sort of says, okay, we'll go along with it. Let's throw some fucking therapy into it, so this and that, which is all necessary. They all have their roles, but that's not non-duality. Non-duality is a stark contrast between what you're thinking and what is. Yeah. It doesn't need the allegiance of your thinking to be what is. It's questioning the whole relativeness of the thinking. It's questioning everything that we question everything else from. It's questioning that. It's not questioning everything else. It's questioning where we question everything else from, it's questioning that. That's all it's asking is, are you that? And if you see what you're not, there'll be an intimation of what you are. And that's the best you can do here. You can't experience what you are. You'd have to be something else to do that. You can't become what you are because you already are. Yeah. You can't have the joy of arriving because you never left, but you'll have an intimation of it. You'll feel it like an overall weather front throughout all your sunny, rainy days. There'll be this one weather front that's not noticed, but it's incredibly it becomes noticed. Yeah, you have an intimation with it. You just feel. That's how it worked with me. I heard the message. People directly, were kind enough to be sharing it. It was just unbelievable. It was like the light was used in a different way than I'd used before. The light was always being used to look at everything, and this light was like, no, just stop right here and see what's going on now. Why is there such an impatience with now, with this future hope of a bigger, better now? All this stuff came under review. And the shit that wasn't so lost momentum, yeah. And some lasted longer than others, and then acceptance arose. And that's fine, you know. I'm a Toyota in a sense, not like a chariot of the gods. Everything doesn't become glistening and bright. It's just there's a loss of interest in it all. Yeah, and a very healthy gaining of interest in now. Yeah, to the point where you never get gypped. You're always here, sleeping, spacing out, not spacing out. It doesn't matter. You've never left. You've never gone anywhere. You know, the head's always assuming it can put miles and distance, degrees, but it's all made up. It's like looking through a kaleidoscopic glass. You see things differently, yes? But if you knew that what was seeing is undifferentiated light, no matter how differentiated it gets here, its nature is undifferentiated, yes? It doesn't become how it appears to us. It doesn't become a real world with people and separation, shit like that. It appears that way, but that's only because it's gone through a certain lens, yeah? It's undifferentiated light, no matter how differentiated, or how special, unique, and separate, or seeing always the differences, no similarity, all is of light, yeah? All is of light, all is of dreaming of light, dreaming with light, dreaming as light, yeah? And there's appearances and shadows and shit like that. And everything you can know, its true nature, which is temporary because it comes and goes. Yet that which is seeing everything never comes and goes, yeah? So which is it? Do you really want to live a life as the seer, or do you want to live a life as the seen? Really, yeah. You're going to have a narration of the seer, but instead of being like a very serious punditry on CNN, it'll be like Comedy Central. You'll get some laughs out of it all, because all these people take everything so seriously. But then no one's disputing the bullshit. That's the assumption that always keeps on going. Yeah, I want to experience my absence, but I want to be there to get it. That's the rub. I want to be there to watch my own transcendence. When do I don't even care about it. I just want the medal. I just want the, whatever, the sticker. I've transcended. So yeah, that's the whole point. So we come back here. Used to be much more ammonia soaked, the room. It did a lot of washing with heavy industrial cleaners. Yeah, and just put out the same information. Basically, if it wasn't non-duality, you'd be in a group called oneness, and it's not that. Yeah. If it was duality, there may be an answer of oneness. There isn't. It's non-duality. And the only reason why there's an idea of one, because it comes from an idea of two, really. If there was only one, there'd be no fucking idea of one. There'd be nothing else. It only comes from being framed with a mental condition that sees two as something real, and then maybe one. Maybe I can merge into the oneness as a two-ness. So it's non-duality. Yeah, non-duality does not lead to oneness. It's non-duality is a negation of two-ness. Yeah, and all bets are off, and you'll find out what happens. Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless it lands on you, really. I come from recovery, you know, as an action figure. And we have this statement that's very pivotal, in recovery, which is being convinced. In other words, certain information has been revealed that you never even fucking knew. And it's not going to be unrevealed. It was like, you know, you've been getting a lot of henna tattoos, and then you get a ink tattoo. It ain't going anywhere. Yeah, and you're convinced of something. Non-duality is the same way. It presents a certain thing a number of times, says in a lot of ways, and then there's a convincing. And not I was convinced or I will be, but a being. You're in a state of being convinced. And I'll tell you, you know, like Jesus says, you know, this mansion has a lot of rooms. That acknowledgement, as soon as you see, you're convinced, that possibility of a lot of rooms becomes true. Yeah. 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 So, yeah. And I believe in satsang, what we have and do now. And I believe in repetition, because the activity that seems to obscure us from the fact is very, very repetitive. So we just like to use repetition in a different way instead of as a poison, as an antidote. So we come here and we share, and people who've been seeing me for a while, you know, there's never anything new in non-duality. It's just the same invitation. Yeah, because you are what you're looking for. Yeah. Then why, if that's not seemingly so, then there must be some activities that are clouding the issue. Really, there has to be. Yeah. If you are what you're looking for, all the looking for it would be put into question, obviously. Yeah. So if the looking for it is really going off, there must not be a faith that you are what you're looking for, because you're busily looking for it still. Yeah. The response to me in non-duality is disarming, and it never goes to a call of arms. It's just disarming. And every time you're in the habit of that which you're not wants to pick up and make it into something, it's dropped to the point where that there's a habit, it just fucking loses interest. It just stops trying to, because you just keep, it's like there was a famous story about in old China, they had this martial art contest from all around the country. The emperor wanted all the greatest martial artists to come and demonstrate their talents. So they had this huge event, and these guys had these giant rings, and they were doing flipping, everything, breaking tons of shit. And then there was this old guy who came out, and he just had a bird on his hand, a little sparrow, and he just stood there like this. Stood there for about 4 minutes, and then the emperor's little henchman said, "You can go," and he walked out with the bird. And then the next day they have the great declaration, who was the greatest master of all, and the old guy won. And everyone's like, "Oh, you know, what?" They're all bummed out. And then they try to explain it. He says, "That sparrow, it needs to push off to fly." And the master could feel it's getting ready to push off, and it would just yield. So the sparrow couldn't take off because they had nowhere to push off from. Yeah. That's beautiful. Eh? So it's sort of like this. It may not be a lot of 4th of July explosions, but there'll be a deep assurance of an inherent okayness that really comes in handy when the shit hits the fan, or things start happening, or the drama gets really crescendoed and stuff. You always fall back into that assurance, yeah, that you are what you're looking for, that being ourselves reality. How much could an illusion have as an effect on you, really? Like when you're dreaming at night and you're dreaming of a tiger, the tiger is imbued with a lot of qualities, like it can rip your throat out. Yeah, it's dangerous. It's gonna just tear me apart. But when you wake up, are you afraid of that dreamt tiger? No, because you're in a different condition now. The tiger can still appear, but you're not afraid of it because it's not a real tiger. Well, there you go. Yeah. So in a way, one of the benefits of non-duality, and it has no interest in really providing benefits, is a traveling lighter through whatever life has in store for us. Yeah. Doesn't mean you're going to get out of that jail-free card. You could or not, but it means if you observe over time, you'll see that you dealt with life differently than you used to deal with life, and that you flowed with it a lot better without any thought or effort to do that or to accomplish that. You gave up all of that, and then you're doing it a whole lot better than you ever would have done if you produced it. Yeah. You're onto something, and you just rely on those ideas. Yeah. See what happens. We're taken care of. Can you imagine if you could have a satisfaction and contentment when you start your day and having it somewhat vaguely there throughout your day, instead of the opposite, which is an irritable restlessness and discontent, your days would look completely different based on your basis, not on what happened in the day, but on your basis. Because the day isn't bigger than us. It isn't. Yeah, we are the dreaming. So when you have contentment and satisfaction, you see everything that you used to think you were looking for. Everything, is it going to bring me, satisfaction or move me away? All that judgment is gone. Yeah, and you're just more available to what's happening. You're not deciding, is it going to, I desire it or I have an aversion to it. You're not going with that. That's another aspect of duality. Yes, desire, aversion. They're basically the same movement. One looks, it goes one way, the other. It's the same. So this is what non-duality is. It's question, and it's not even questioning the desire, the aversion. It's questioning the sense of being the one who desires and hates. Yeah, that's the whole point. Because the duality is a way this dreaming is noticed. Yeah, you're not going to change those glasses, but you can see the unreality of the duality as it's appearing. Yeah? And where that comes from isn't there's no desire or no hate. There's just no one who has desire or has hate. That's the whole point. Yeah. So you see duality. To see duality doesn't straighten it all out. You see duality. It just happens. But now you're not the one who's seeing duality. You take that sense of ownership out of it. And now that which you could not brook or come to accept is quite acceptable. Yeah, when you change. Yeah, so there you have it. Yes, and then we have questions maybe from the peanut gallery way out there. If you have any questions, raise your hands. Doesn't mean we'll answer, but give it a shot. Could be your lucky day. What is that? We said Amelia's father looks like Clint Eastwood, so we got him a Clint Eastwood shirt. I was going to get one of the Dirty Harry ones. Is it your lucky day, punk? Well, is it? Well, we went with the good, bad, and ugly look of Clint. Yeah. Yes.
I think you spoke about desire, aversion.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little more about it? That's an interesting subject because being alive, I live in a world of desire.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
okay.
Well, that's the point.
You want to recap it?
Oh, yes. Our lady friend here is asking just to riff more on desire and aversion. Well, that's obviously a duality. Yes? Desire and aversion. We're not talking about changing that. We're talking about seeing it. Because if you see that, you may see the add-on that you're usually looking from, which is the one who's desiring and the one who's hating. Yeah. You see, it's just simple. We presented it earlier. So there's desiring, let's say. Yeah. The mental state claims that. Yeah. And it implies that there's one who's desiring. So it uses the desire, which is going to come in this dualistic expression. Yeah, you're going to want to go towards things, and you're going to want to move away from things. Yeah, but it claims those movements to imply you, or you that you're not. You see, so the desire is given meaning not by the desire, but the one who has the desire. Yes. And so a lot of people want to stop having desires or aversion. It's like fool's gold because that's what's happening here. Yeah. But the idea that it's you is a question mark. Yeah. And that's the question. That's the point non-duality is questioning. It's not questioning desire and aversion. It's not questioning this or that. It's not questioning subject object. It's questioning the sense of being the one who's doing or being done to by everything. This sense of being the center of the narration of self-centeredness. Yeah? And that feeling of self is the sense of being a long-lasting, independent, separate thing. Yeah. Now, The thing itself doesn't give us that meaning. That meaning is given to the thing. Yeah. The object doesn't get the meaning of itself from the object. It gets the meaning from the distorted subjectness. Yeah. So the subject attributes all these things that it's claimed to be the doer of to the body so that it can remember it's the doer by just imaging the body. Yeah. Yeah. The seeing doesn't need any remembering, but the seer definitely does. The seer has to be remembered constantly, or it will be forgotten quite easily, because because it lives. Its whole point comes from something other than it. It's seeing. Seeing is where it derives itself as the seer. Yeah.
And seeing, could that be awareness?
That's awareness, yeah. Onness, awareness, yeah. Not the eyes. Seeing. Seeing and awareness seem to be synonymous, yeah. Not the seeing of the eyes, but seeing. Yeah, or awareness or onness. Yeah, so that's the point. So there really isn't much discussion with, you know, you should desire less and hate less. Those are other Zoom lessons, you know. This is about, is there anyone who desires? If there isn't, there'll be a lot less meaning put into the desire that's happening. Yes? Because the desire is a conveyor of meaning being given to it through the identification as the desirer. That is basically the diagnosis of the disease of the bondage of self. Yes, there's a claiming of what's happening, which is desires and aversions are happening. Yeah, kids have it, everyone has it, yes. It's not questioning that, it's questioning what that implies in the mental state is there's a someone in there. And that implying is just that. It's not true, it's not factual, it's implied and constantly reinforced and reestablished and remembered all the time. Yeah, we're questioning that. So this isn't about, this is what happens. People get into good and bad thoughts. So, okay, what's the only thing I can do without questioning the idea of being the thinker? Well, I'm going to try to do affirmations and only have good thoughts. And then, you know, of course, a bad thought's going to arise, or what you call one, and ruin your whole fucking practice. And then you're back on it again, and you can't win. You're like, it's like being on a seesaw. You want to get there, and you're here, but when you get there, it's there, and you can't win. So this is the point. You can't make oneness and stabilization out of two-ness and volatility. And this is, the waters of this interpretation are choppy. Yeah, nothing's going smoothly, nothing stabilizes. That's not 40 years of clear seeing and clear swimming and clear sailing. Shit happens, yes? But the wish upon all wishes is to have a feeling to stabilize and stay in that feeling. And people have gone to great lengths to do it, building compounds, having retreats. They knew the retreats weren't going to work in Newark, so they have them in Costa Rica, throw kayaking in there, massage, eating bananas and fucking like that. And it's like a great vacation. And yet you don't feel, you call it a spiritual retreat, so you don't feel guilty that you went on a vacation. I was on a retreat. They have brochures now. They don't show the Great Master, they show the water, Costa Rica, kayaking, you know, whatever, that lining, zip lining. In between meditations, zip line. Yeah. So, you know, it's this is just questioning the fundamental assumption that everything else is spinning out from. Why? Because why waste time going through the 800th gyration of the initial spin? Get to there. Look at it. You're right there. It's not being done to you. You're sitting right here. It's cooking up right now. Oh, it's in the other room planning my, no, it isn't in the other room. It's right in this room doing its thing. Yeah. And I'll tell you, you're not going to travel lighter as that. You travel lighter from it, really. It's not going to master the traveling lighter because it's of two-ness. Yeah. how it finds worth is by the opposite. It works in comparison. So it's thinking the head is completely different than the tail on the same coin. Yeah, you're gonna just get suffocated by that currency, really. So the message of non-duality, I feel, I could be wrong, you know, but I don't even care. That's the good news. That's the living message of non-duality. You just put out what you've been motivated to put out, and you know, that's it. It's out of my jurisdiction. I just say what comes through. There you go. You're beholden to it. I'm not really. I see a vast difference between the messenger and the message. I do, completely. I wouldn't take any advice from the messenger on a lot of topics, but I would definitely hear the message. Definitely, I would. I have great faith in the message, and I honor the message for sure. But the messenger is secondary, truly. But see here in this, we're in this object-based interpretation. So everyone, a lot of times it's easy to mistake the message with the messenger. Yeah. And it sets up an easy out for you to avoid really hearing the message by having opinions of the messenger. Yeah, it's another way of distracting, which the mental state wants, because the mental state knows its demise is completely imminent because it doesn't exist, but it's afraid to come to that point. So it's distracting us all day. Yeah, all day. It's just trying to put off the inevitable. So, yeah. So, yeah, you see, so take off, all right, divide, desire and hate. Yes, we could have huge hours of that, but we're going to move before it. Who is it that has it? And I'm telling you, the who is where a whole lot of movie gets blasted out from. The who is the distributor. The who is almost like you think it's it injects what comes after. So the idea of desire and aversion has the meaning it has, not by desire and aversion, but by you. You're giving it the meaning it has. Yeah. And if you feel like you're settled down by that, don't try to change desire aversion, just see who's the you. If it's not you, then that fact is lifted because it's not true. It's an appearance. Yeah. And maybe you can live quite well with desires that used to drive you crazy because they're not yours. And if you see it works once, you've gotten a clue. So you stop looking at the trees without the sense of the forest. You have the sense of the forest while the trees appear. Yeah, instead of thinking you're going to become a professor of trees and I only want this one kind of tree. Yeah, no, you see, get the sense of the forest of it all. Yeah. Yes, so.
Yeah, a great relief is that it's life happening. It's not life happening to me, just life happening.
Yeah, isn't it? Obviously. Most people, when they look at your life, that's how they think. They're not that interested in life happening to you. They're just, oh, life's just happening. But life's happening to me here. Yeah. That changes the whole ballgame, doesn't it? It does. If you have your friend has a thought, or the thought has your friend, and they're really super bummed out, you're immune to it, usually. But if you had the same thought and held it as yours, it could ruin your day. So is it the thought? Why not get clear? Is it the thought, or is it the one who takes itself to be the thinker of the thought? It's the one who takes itself to be the thinker is the meaning giver. It's not the thought. The thought is used. It's sort of like, you know, the truck delivers something, but it's not the package that's delivered. Yeah, so the thought delivers something, but something packed that thought in with meaning. And it comes from this identification as self. That is the bondage of self. It's living life as if we're in the act of being identified as self. Yeah, that's complete interpretation. And therefore, and it doesn't go, it's not an inclusive way of looking at things. The interpretation has to override the living, because the living is a threat to the interpretation. So your life gets fucking frozen in a certain way, and it gets replaced with an interpretation of living. Yeah, and then you feel all this irritable wrestle. You can't fucking put your finger on it, but there's been a heist, really. Something replaced living with an interpretation of life. Yeah. And because it's about us and we get enamored with this false little image, you know, and then it's, you know how it does it, it shuts it down. Sometimes, I remember when in addiction, basically, you think you deserve a lot, but you're not expecting much, yeah? And you tolerate incredible conditions just to get the drug or something like that. And then when I got recovered from that, that old habit was still there, yeah? You know, I would put up with shit that I didn't need to put up with anymore, but it was just a habit. So like when I was out there using, if my right arm got bloody, I would just look left all day, just fucking, you know, I'm not dealing with that. And so like that, and that carried in, even though my life changed, the mental diagrams hadn't changed yet. Yeah, they were still presenting the same story on a new event and a new day. It was the same old was being pasted over a new day. Thank God the new day was alive enough that the light was breaking through and was hard to fucking contain. Yeah, but I could see if it was just another old day, the covering would have just went perfectly. Yeah, you would be dying of suffocation thinking you were living large. You know? Yeah, so
Paul, what you're saying about the thoughts, the essential thing, not content of thoughts, but realization that you are not the doer. You're not
the thinker,
action figure that does all the thing.
Yeah.
So basically, the assumption of not being the doer. And would that translate to another way of saying that is basically that you, as an independent, long-lasting figure, do not exist? That furthermore, that you're really storyline.
yes.
That you tell yourself, and you try to live up to the storyline and act in a way that goes along with that storyline. And
Yeah, and you're fine with that,
right.
because you see it's not you. You don't find a huge amount of fault that needs to be worked on. You just fucking, and
Right.
this is this is how it's appearing. Yeah, if you get in there and have a beef with how it's appearing, that's a bigger part of how it's appearing. You know what I mean? It was really this one movie got me. There's a movie called The Matrix. Yeah, it was pretty moving when we saw it in Corte Madera the first night. So in The Matrix, and then they had two others after that, and it's about this whole everyone's living in a programmed, quote unquote, reality, so to speak, and basically the person themselves are in a little tube, and their energy, their life force is being used to fuel the big main frame, like a computer generated effect. And they make the computer generated effect pretty dicey, so you want to stay in it, so to speak. Yes, yeah. So then this guy Neo, it comes to people recognize something in him before he does, and he comes to the recognition that he's going to be the savior. Yeah, and he's going to destroy the mainframe or whatever and reinstate the humans. Yeah, and they have him in a pretty good wardrobe. He's got a long leather jacket with Ray-Bans and really nice hair and thin, and so just he wasn't a slouchy looking savior. So he was walking around and he found all these powers. He could do a lot of shit, and then he meets an appearance from the mainframe called the Architect. And I'm probably going to blow it if people are Matrix people, but so they he comes into this room where this architect, let's say, what is it called? Hologram, yeah, is there. And there's all these little TVs on both walls, all of Neo in different action figure moves, he's the one. And then the architect says, "Oh, Neo, I've been waiting to meet you. you're the one, aren't you? Yeah, he says, well, you know, you're the seventh one that we've had in this fucking programming. The first one, we figured it out quickly and it morphed into the part of the whole system. So thank you, number 7. And he's like, you can see Neo was a little bummed out. What? Oh yeah, we've tons of saviors. Nothing changes. Number 7, let's go. Flew his whole story. You'll have those days. You will. You'll see something. You have assumed some importance that gets stripped away, maybe in a flash, and you're left as the emperor with no clothes. You see the bogusness of it. It's not meant to be covering up your parts. It's meant to just stand there exposed. Let it see what it tells you. And maybe that which you're withholding because you're not good enough and better and shit like that, you'll now be available to life's deliveries. Yeah. Maybe against your own belief, you're going to be loved quite a lot. You know, a lot of things can happen. And after a while, you get in the habit of giving up the old ideas and taking in the new experience. Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. So I don't like the idea of going off into the two-ness and all right, desire, aversion, what to do when you're in a desire. You know, go before, because this false oneness is the setting for all the two-ness, because the false oneness is two-ness. It's subject objectness. It's saying you're a long-lasting, independent, separate thing, a one unit, but you're of two-ness. You are of two-ness, giving the meaning to all two-ness. You're not one being imposed by a meaning of two-ness. You're not. You're nothing. You're beyond comprehension. Yeah. And when we're looking through this subject object, we see everything in a dualistic bent. Yeah. If you try to change that without changing this, it's pointless. And when you see that this is the cause of it, you have no interest in changing it because you see it's pointless. And you just realize, all right, you know, my eyes are great, but these are the glasses I see through. And there's no big arguments. Yeah. Well, wouldn't you take them off? Well, who's taking them off? You know, yeah, not going to kill you. Undifferentiated light is the nature of light. No matter how differentiated it appears, it's undifferentiated. That's the point. Yeah. So, yes. Anyone? Any other questions?
Yeah. Mark, go ahead.
Mark, go ahead. I don't know to do what, but go ahead.
Hi, Paul.
Heard of my partner. I give you.
Oh, yeah.
We have a. What?
Okay, go ahead.
Mark.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Just a few things. Totally feeling everything you're saying. As usual, nothing changes. One of the things you say, you have said, is that the party is great until you get there and it stinks.
Yeah.
That's something that I think I'm aware of, that if something goes wrong, the common denominator is that I'm always present. But I've got a couple of questions for you. I had a situation a couple of days, not a situation, experience a couple of days ago. Also a Zoom meeting. I'm part of this focus group, and the chairperson asked me to say a few words. Not an issue. I'm used to giving talks and stuff from my previous work, etc. But a few days prior and up to that point, I felt like butterflies in my stomach, and I was aware of them. But there was, and I laughed. I started laughing because I was like, I'm not nervous. There's nothing to be nervous about. There's not a situation that I'm aware of, but I felt this experience of the, I can only describe them as butterflies. And the more I not stayed, but the more I was aware of it, it's subsided, and I don't know when it stopped. I have no idea when that feeling stopped, but I know it stopped because I realized at some point that it wasn't there. Can you speak to that? Does that
About the butterfly stopping?
yeah, me noticing it there, being there, and then it stopping, but there was no attachment. There's no emotion. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel. There's nothing like that. But just aware of these butterflies in the stomach.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm capturing it the right way for you.
Right.
I remember, my younger life, I got arrested quite a lot. And so I remember when I got sober, and it was years into sobriety, I was traveling a lot. And after a long flight, I was a little burnt out, and then you go through customs. And I always thought that they had my picture in Interpol, and I was going to get arrested with absolutely no factual basis, but my body would feel very anxious and nervous. And I was okay even while that was going on. And then I walked through and nothing would happen. And after a while, the old dog does learn new tricks, and it gets more used to it. Hey, I'm not in that old day anymore, because sometimes our reactions really obviously aren't up from now. They're from a past imprint. Yeah,
absolutely.
So basically it had a lot of momentum because I had a lot of traumatic events getting arrested, because especially if you were like on an 8-day run on cocaine and then suddenly the police enter, it's really fucking, the contrast is so extreme, it almost like cracks your little skull open. And I had many of those times, and so it's set off like traumatic impressions in the action figure, and then just by new behavior and new experiences, those things were muted. So
thank you, Paul. That makes so much sense, because as you explain that experience, that makes sense, because I have had experiences in the past when my wife was unwell, etc., in work, where I held a meeting. I was recruiting staff for the company, our company, and I just went blank, literally nothing. I just couldn't move. I couldn't do anything, and I had to excuse myself. First time ever. It only happened once ever. And that feeling that I had recently reminded me, if I think back, reminds me of that. But I was just like you, was okay walking through. I was okay. I felt okay, but I was aware of that sensation. So it was very interesting.
Great. Well, again, see, it's great because that old way the head works is one thing means another. And what happens is now when that one thing appears, it doesn't fulfill, it means another. It just means there's nervousness. It doesn't mean I'm going to get arrested. Yes. Absolutely. That's the point. So see, this is the point. Whatever's happening is being used by the mental state. So one thing happens and then it means something else. What's the loss of interest isn't, you don't have interest in saying nothing's happening. You meet what's happening, but the add-on gets weakened. The add-on, something happens and it means this. The meaning this was the big knockout punch. It wasn't really what was happening. So now the meaning this is weakened. So
absolutely. And just to conclude, after that happened, what was great about it, when I gave my talk, it was great. It's very relaxed. It's one of the best talks I think I've done in a while. So it wasn't, I didn't participate in that feeling. As you say, I didn't give it a meaning and make something out of it, which back in the day I probably would have, because I made my life pretty stressful. Do you know what I mean? By taking responsibility that I was the one and so on. Now I'm doing so many different things, Paul, different things I'm part of, and it's just happening as it should, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's great. It's great.
Great. Well, then what the appropriate response to that is to honor the demonstration, because perhaps there's a better way. You're in one of the examples of it. Yeah, so you more and more, and it sort of galvanizes something that can't be galvanized, yeah, because it's moving, convinced, unconvinced. There's a convincing comes up from underneath, because I always honor the demonstrations, because a lot of the head will have a miracle occur and forget it in a half an hour, and yet will harp on something that never happened for like 30 years. So you have to see there's a bias in the interpretive event. It's very biased, yeah. And so I always, when I work in recovery, I always pronounce the idea of honoring the demonstration of something doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself. Just begets more of it, really, I feel. Yeah, so yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Oh, really? What time is it?
38. 2:38.
2:38? I like that imaginary clock.
41.
Jean-Claude looks up and goes 2:38.
Yeah.
There's no clock on that wall. It's 2:38 already?
Yeah, 41.
What time did we start? Oh, 1:30. Well, any other questions? If not, we'll go. You want to go coffee? Oh, good. We'll go with that. You want to join us? Oh, you got to go back. All right.
See you in your hand. You want to come say goodbye?
Yeah. Let me say goodbye. Aye.
Oh, what is it?
Oh, it's the most fun.
I'll sit there instead.
Do your Italian list. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me still? Yeah. Nice to see you. Mike, Steve, Lee,
Right?
Anu, thank you, Anu. And Alex, thank you for the donation. And Jacob, nice to see you. Linda, thank you for the donation.
There's more people.
There's more people.
This is another gallery or what?
Yeah.
Roman.
They're on the right.
We got Tariq from Dover, Norman with his new dude. We got Gio from Brazil. Nice to see you, Gio. I threw in some Hawaiian poets. Yeah. I can't read, so I didn't change cameras. But that's Mary G. Very nice to see you. James, brother French, New Zealand. Glenda O'Driscoll. Glenda, nice to see you there. We got Sandra. Sandra, you've been here before?
2 times, yes.
Oh, great. Nice to see you again. Where are you from?
Portugal.
Oh, Portugal. Oh, yeah. I like the Portuguese Zen bitch slappers. We like them. Yeah, that's nice. We got Kenneth from Toronto. Kana. We got, is this Cody? Nice to see you, I think. Yes. It's nice to see you, but I don't know. Can't make out the name. We got Elaine and Carl. Yes, always nice to see them. We got Mark N. How do I do it? This guy? Let's see. Oh, there's Alan. Nice to see you, Alan, and John Luna from Long Island. Ben Clark, the poet laureate. We got Elaine and Carl, Mark, and all right, I think I covered everyone. What? I got Mary, yes. Hey, listen, if I haven't seen you, oh, there's John T. Nice to see you, John. Thanks for coming again. And I can't see anything else. Oh, there's Mickey and everyone. Hey, listen, thank you so much. We'll be here on Tuesday. And we'll be here Wednesday. We'll do the recovery Tuesday, Wednesday night, and then we're gonna be away for a couple of weeks. So
3 weeks.
we'll do 1 or 2 when we're away, and they'll be announced on the website. Haven't figured out when. Yes? Thanks, everyone.